Every single time anyone mentions veganism on Twitter or in real life, all of a sudden, the entirety of Twitter lives in a food desert, does not have access to a car or transportation, lives like 2.5 hours away from the nearest grocery store or farmer's market, or has some incredibly specific blood disease where they can't, can only eat 2-3 things, or has some sensory issues where they can only eat certain textures, okay? Suddenly the whole world is living in that situation. So like, it just, that doesn't add up, okay? Hi y'all, ciao VISIEM. It's my favorite aesthetic. Vegan, but I eat the rich. Anyways, I promise you that this channel is not turning into like a vegan YouTube channel. I'm not going to be doing that. Although I always knew that this is a topic I was gonna talk about, I was gonna address, so I think I'm gonna do like a little series about different things related to veganism, but I'm gonna be putting that in between all my other wonderful content, so it's not gonna be a YouTube channel. But anyways, before we start, I just wanted to get all the facts down. So I've been vegetarian for about 14-15 years, something ridiculous like that, and it's even hard for me to know exactly how many years because I was a child basically when I first stopped eating animals. And I think I remember being like 12 or 13 when I consciously told my parents and said like, no, I don't want to eat animals ever again. But basically, like, ever since I was a baby, like ever since I was a child, I was always and still am a huge animal lover. I loved every kind of animal. Like, I've just always had a huge love for animals and respect for animals. And so the thought for me as a child to love my pets and love all the animals I see out in the when we go to the countryside, all the cows and pigs and goats and so on, to love all these animals, yet to murder them, torture and murder them, and then eat their dead bodies, just like didn't sit right with me. It just felt really cruel and wrong. And actually, that's an incredibly natural and common reaction in a lot of children. I mean, like, the internet is flooded with funny videos of kids crying when their parents make them eat meat because they don't understand, like, why are we killing these animals that I watch in my cartoons and stuff and that I love and that I see out in, the world, and now we're eating them, like we're eating their flesh. That's actually an incredibly common thing. But yeah, so that was the thing for me my whole childhood. And so now that I talk to my mom, like, she tells me to, even when I was like much younger than 12, I always like, if there was ever an option not to eat meat, I would eat all the other things. Like, I was really, I mean, I was a child, so I'd eat whatever I was given. But most of the time I really like tried to not to eat it. And then yeah, when I was like 12, 13, I just consciously said like, no, I don't ever want to eat animals again. And also in my household, my mom was still eating meat when I was a child, but then later on she became vegetarian and she's been vegan longer than I have. But my dad, on the other hand, eats like like 3 animals a day. So basically in my household I had both. But so the reason I wanted to just give this really quick background is that so that you know where I'm coming from, that first of all, I'm vegan for the animals primarily. It's always been about the animals for me. And second of all, that not eating animals is not some sort of a trend for me or like the new cool thing or something that I'm doing to lose weight or anything of the sort. Like, it's something that's been a huge part of my life, of my worldview, of how I interact and experience this world since like a very early age. Now the thing is though, that even though it's been such a huge part of my life for like almost like 2 decades, I have not always spoken about it. In fact, for most of my life, I have not spoken about it at all. And so there's 2 reasons. First one is because I became vegetarian back when I lived in Latvia, and back when I lived in Latvia 10-20 years ago, because right now Latvia is actually huge for vegans, but back in the day, it was not, okay? It was not. And so like, even when my mom went vegetarian, like, she would legit be harassed at work because all these people would just like, it's just not a thing that people could comprehend. Like, so radically different than here in the US or like many other countries. Like, it's just, it was not a thing. And so telling people was not really an option. Like, and also remember, mind you, like I was a child and a teenager. Like, the last thing I wanted when I was like 14 and 15 was to tell my aunties and uncles, the neighborhood aunties and uncles or whomever, that like I don't eat animals, and then to like face all of the mockery and laughter and like just like picking at you that was gonna happen, or like even more violent than that. So I didn't want that, of course. So since that's how I went into like my not eating animals thing, I always just felt like it was like a personal, private, like quiet thing that I do quietly by myself. And like if I'm out, I'm just like swerving, like trying to avoid if there's ever like meat dishes or anything of the sort, and like try to like not be vocal about it, to say as little as possible. Like, that's how I grew up. And then of course for high school and for college, I moved west, I moved to the Netherlands, I moved to the US, and it was honestly much less of a big deal. Like, no one really cared, especially in my high school, because it was an international boarding school. So we had like a person from every single country in the world. So the dietary restrictions were broad. You know, there's people who were kosher, who ate halal, people who had who didn't eat animals at all for religious reasons or whatever. So it was not a big deal at all. So I just felt comfortable that I didn't have to like be afraid to say it. But then the problem then is that I still did not want to talk about not eating animals because of white vegans and white vegans or white people talking about veganism, which is just a disaster. And I did not want to add to that. Like, I did not want to contribute to that, even if I said things that were, you know, like normal and fine and researched and educated. I didn't want that to be grouped together or interpreted that with those people. I just feel like white vegans is just not a group anyone wants to be part of. And when I'm saying white vegans, I clearly mean like rich white Western, but let's just group it all together for the sake of the argument. So yeah, I just felt like a lot of the stuff everything that I was seeing these people say were things that like I was just like disagreeing with, and that were horrible and like ruining the image for like the rest of us basically. And you know, like there's white rich vegans who are like comparing animal factory farming to like slavery or whatever crazy stupid nonsense PETA has done this month, you know, like all of these things are just like not something that I wanted to be part of. And I just felt like I'm gonna be doing more damage by speaking as a white person and then like just not speaking and letting, or like my intention was to basically highlight, uplift, and emphasize all of the voices that were non-white who were actually saying all the right shit, you know, like, and speaking. But the thing is, and soon enough I realized that this strategy is not really a strategy at all. It simply doesn't work. People who are committed to a certain type of belief, people who are committed to justifying their belief at all costs, are always going to find a way to do it. And more from experience and from, you know, seeing what's happening, I realized that it's not really that those voices are the majority or even the loudest. It's that people intentionally want those voices to be the majority. They want to listen to those voices. It's beneficial. Anyways, I'll get into that in a little bit, but like there's this one interview with Audre Lorde, and someone asked her, you know, like you speak out about all this oppression and systems of oppression, like you're so outspoken about it, it must be really difficult, you know, to be so loud and outspoken about it, to receive a lot of shit. And Audre Lorde's response was something along the lines of like, if I were born mute, I would still be suffering and I would still be living under the same systems of oppression that I am right now. So basically, point being, then why stay silent? Like I'm still gonna be suffering either way. And I think like that really spoke to me as well. And so I realized more and more that it's really not that there aren't non-white vegans speaking, okay? There's plenty, there's millions. And it's not that, you know, like it's hard to find their voices or anything. There's tons, millions. There's millions vegans of all sorts who are saying all of the right things, okay? We're just choosing not to give these voices a platform. We're choosing to take like the 3-4 the terrible voices and then give them all the platforms in the world so that we can point at them and be like, oh, look at that, like this is so trash, this is terrible. It's like with anything, like think about it, we have like what, like 5-6 like black celebrities who are Republicans or like incredibly like say some anti-black shit once in a while. How many times do we have to hear about them? 1,000 times a day, because people will give them 5 times the platform that they have simply because it serves some interests, okay? It serves a purpose. Often I would go on Twitter and I'd see a tweet like, every time you call veganism a white thing, you're erasing me, you know, coming from vegans of color. Or like, every time you're about to call veganism a white thing, how about you open your laptop and Google black vegans, indigenous vegans, Latinx vegans, and you can even do that and add your city, and you'll have plenty of things pop up. Like here in Baltimore, the Afro-Vegan Society runs this city, okay? If I wanna go to a vegan restaurant, majority of them are soul food. I don't even know if there's any like white vegan things here, okay? So it's such a blatant like ignorance, and it's legitimately a choice people make to pretend that like it's only a white thing, it's only a rich thing, it's only a this thing, when all of these other people are existing and living their beautiful, wonderful vegan lives, and like it's just not convenient for us to look at that. But of course that makes perfect sense. If I were a carnivore, if I'm an animal eater and I like eating animals and I'm committed to this is my lifestyle, you know, this is how I'm living, and then over there I see all these like vegans, this group of people who are like suggesting that perhaps we like shouldn't murder animals and sentient beings for our taste buds, and that maybe it has also like some environmental implications and, you know, like maybe health benefits too, and all of these things that like, and I don't like that. That doesn't sit right with me because I'm eating animals, and this, you know, this contradicts something in me. I'm not comfortable with that. Now, what am I gonna do? Am I gonna go online and like research and look up all of their arguments and like read the studies and like really educate myself and then do the hard work of perhaps like changing my lifestyle a little bit, you know, like reducing meat consumption or like trying to learn about some of these things and like really sitting with this discomfort that I may have inside of me? Or am I gonna open the internet, open my computer and go online and like find that 1 or 2 or 3 or whatever article that says there where PETA is doing some dumb shit, or like where some vegan, you know, like, or some person went vegan for a month and only ate papaya and mangoes and like almost died, and am I gonna be of course I'm gonna be resharing that and posting that and pointing at that and saying, see, all vegans are trash, everything they're doing is wrong, this is just terrible, this is why I'm not vegan, this is it, this is what they're all like, and this is why I'm not doing. Of course I would do that. Like, that makes perfect rational sense if you're trying to justify your own behavior. I think like one myth to clearly like debunk immediately is that those voices that these people are, you know, uplifting or sharing, or that we're seeing often, they're not necessarily the majority. In fact, they are not the majority. They are uplifted and given a platform 50 times over because it serves a particular purpose. So the issue isn't really who's speaking, because there's plenty of other like non-rich, non-white, non-Western, whatever vegan speaking. It's not an issue of who's speaking, it's who we choose to listen to, and it's what arguments we choose to engage with, which are always the bottom ones, the easiest ones. Oh, this right here, I'm gonna engage with that. It's never the actual arguments that meat eaters engage with. So here's the thing, you guys. Right now, I'm in a bit of a bind because on the one hand, I genuinely do not care one bit what other people eat. I don't care. I don't care what other people put in their bodies. I don't care if people eat only fast food and die at 45. I don't care if people smoke or drink, or if they don't. I really just couldn't care less. Like, I'm already doing the best for my body. Like, I you know, control what I put in my body, and I know I don't need to be convinced. I already know I'm doing the right thing, and I don't care, you know, about other people's choices. At the same time, I desperately, deeply, passionately, wholeheartedly care about the animals who are suffering, being tortured and abused and brutally murdered so that people can eat their bodies. I care about that, okay, so much. And this is, once again, I'm only talking about the animals. I'm not even talking about environmental implications or, you know, like whatever, your health benefits. I don't care about anybody else's health, you know, like your choice. This is simply talking only about the animals and like sentient beings literally living in horrible conditions and being tortured and murdered for our pleasure. Now, here's the thing. The reasons for why you should go vegan are already out there, okay? The internet's free. It's already out there. So I'm not going to be spending hours and hours to go online right now and to look up all of the information on the environmental cost of the Western heavily meat-based diet. I'm not going to be looking up, you know, like health benefits of a vegan plant-based diet. I'm not going to be looking up all of this information and compiling all of the already existing infographics into this nice little list for somebody. I'm not going to be researching exactly how many gallons of water it takes to produce a hamburger, or the land size, you know, how much of the Amazon rainforest is burned down and cleared for cattle ranching. I'm definitely not going to be looking at videos and footage, which, by the way, there's a reason why they don't allow cameras in factory farms. I'm not going to be looking at videos of animal abuse, of how cows are raped and tortured, and how cow mamas cry for days after their babies are taken away from them, or, you know, like all of these other horrible things. I'm not going to be looking that up for you because it's already out there, like, simply put. And I truthfully believe that, like, we all already know that, you know. It's the same with, like, other things, like constantly having to prove to white people that racism exists or stuff like that. Like, it's a waste of everyone's breath. Like, everyone knows that. Like, the fact that, I don't know, criminal justice system isn't fair, like, you're choosing to believe that it is, you know? So I'm not going to be doing that, because I do believe that we all know, and I think that we either know it and are doing something about it, or we know it and we're choosing not to do anything about it, or we know it and we cannot do anything about it. And this third part is what I'm going to be talking about in a little bit. So simply put, lack of information is not the issue here, okay? That's not the issue. But what I will address is this one argument and this one thing that I have noticed, you know, like on my Twitter, on my platforms, or in my real life. So basically, every time I go on the internet or on Twitter and anywhere, and I'll see a post, anything, like any post about that even mentions the word vegan, and it could be a post about how somebody reversed their heart disease and diabetes, you know, by going on a plant-based diet, or how someone now, cleared their skin, which, by the way, dairy and acne go hand in hand. Or it could legitimately be like someone takes a photo of their wholesome meal and dinner they made, or like their breakfast pancakes that they made by like a vegan recipe, you know. Any post at all, and like clockwork, there's going to be somebody immediately responding, saying something along the lines of, "Oh, are you saying everyone should go vegan? How fucking dare you, okay? Do you know how expensive the vegan diet is? Do you know how not everyone can afford that? Okay, do you know how privileged and elitist you are right now? Like, you're such an asshole. How fucking dare you? Like, shut the fuck up and die, you know, like, how fucking dare you?" That's me paraphrasing all of the tweets that I see in response to this, but you get the idea. And now here's the thing. It's completely true. Of course, not everyone can go vegan. Like, duh. Like, obviously, that's completely true. There's people who can't afford food at all, you know? There's people who are homeless. There's people who have to go to shelters and soup kitchens, who clearly have no choice over what they eat. They can't, you know, obviously, like, obviously. But now it seems like every single time anyone mentions veganism on Twitter or in real life, all of a sudden, the entirety of Twitter, the entirety of internet, the entirety of the United States of America lives in a food desert, does not have access to a car or transportation, you know, lives like 2.5 hours away from the nearest grocery store or farmer's market, is making $18K a year living below poverty, or has some incredibly specific blood disease where they can't, you know, can only eat 2-3 things, or has some sensory issues where they can only eat certain textures, okay? Like, suddenly the whole world is living in that situation. So like, it just, that doesn't add up, okay? It just doesn't add up. So my question really is, do you live in a food desert? Do you live with 5 family members below poverty line? Do you have a rare blood disorder or something that, you know, you can't, is that the case? Because if not, then what are you really saying? The thing is that no one's talking about those people, okay? Vegans, or I'm not gonna say no one, because clearly we can go out right now and find those like 3-5 or whatever, the minority of like privileged white Western people. White people are always, like, we as a group are always, there's always some one of us saying like the worst shit, the dumbest shit. So I'm not gonna say no one, but the vast majority of vegans do not go out in the world and try to convince or like shame or, you know, like tell the homeless, the poor, the utterly marginalized to go vegan, okay? No one's doing that. No one is saying, like, we're talking to you, okay? We're talking to the person who's tweeting out these response tweets, you know, like sitting in their kitchen island with their MacBook and their Starbucks Frappuccino by their side, typing out, fighting against this incredibly exclusionary, privileged diet, okay? I mean, if there's one group of people who knows just how difficult and inaccessible being vegan can be, it's vegans, okay? We know. I pay for my groceries, so I know, okay? We know. And in fact, who do you think is fighting against food deserts? Who do you think is fighting for food justice? Who do you think is on the front lines fighting for people in the hood and in food deserts to have access to fresh fruits and vegetables? Who do you think is doing that? Mr. McDonald's? Hip Hop Fried Chicken that's on every corner here in the hood in Baltimore? Vegans are doing that, okay? And that's another thing that pisses me off so much, because the people who are gonna be like spewing that counter argument of how inaccessible it is are never the people who are fighting for it to be more accessible. They're only saying that to like disregard this whole movement, because once again, they don't wanna confront their own, you know, like lifestyle. So to conclude this video, yes, not everyone can go vegan, but you can, okay? And as I said before, I really don't care what other people put in their bodies, but I desperately care about the animals, and I kid you not, at least once a month, more like once a week, I will think about what goes on in factory farms and cry. Like, I will cry thinking about how the pain and suffering that the animals are going through, and this is the type of pain and suffering that's so easy to get rid of, you know, like there's so many other systems of oppression that is just so much harder for us to fight against. This is not hard. This is not hard for the vast majority of us to fight against, you know, to like stop supporting. So I do hope that people start eating less meat and eventually go vegan. But if you don't do that, then at the very least, be honest about it, okay? Because what we're not gonna do, what you're not gonna do, is use marginalized, poor, disabled, and all other types of people as your scapegoats and just like use that for the sake of your argument and as a justification why you're not doing that. That's not cool, okay? No. So if you make your choice and you do choose to eat animals, then at least like be honest about it, dude. Like, admit it, you know, sit with it, be comfortable with it, watch some videos of, you know, like factory farm animals being abused, you know, like pigs and chickens being beaten up or whatever, and like sit with that. But like, don't use other people's struggles as your justification for why you can't do it or won't do it. That's it from me. I hope you enjoyed the video. Please drop all comments and questions below, and subscribe if you are interested in the other series I'm gonna do about veganism or all of the other stuff that I discuss and talk about. I just want to also quickly say that, like, obviously I'm vegan. I haven't eaten meat for like 2 decades, and I am poor. I've always been poor. So I also cook all of my meals, like 98% of my meals I cook. So I do have, you know, like a lot of suggestions and recommendations in terms of people who may think that this is financially not doable for you and just want some advice. And I promise I'm actually going to be filming recipes and sharing that. So if you have also any questions, if you're like interested in transitioning or anything, I'm like your resource right here any time of the day. So just get in touch. I love you all so much, and I love all the animals and the planet so much, and I hope they never ever have to suffer again. Mwah.